Nothing needs to be explained when it comes to Pac-Man. It's simplicity at its most basic form, yet it's pushed the boundaries of what was expected from arcades at the time. And because of that, it captured the imaginations and wallets of everybody who saw it, no matter your age or your sex. And has even to this day continued to stand as the absolute king of all of gaming. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, guys. Let's go back to the beginning and take a look at the gargantuan world that is Pac-Man, where we will be looking into and confirming his origins, his tremendous legacy, his merchandise, and of course, his games. Welcome to Slope's Game Room.
Today I am joined by DJ Slope himself, Dan Ibberson. How are you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Tell us a little bit about you and your channel and what you do.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I've got a few different series that I look at on my channel. The main thing is the Complete History series. That's my baby. I've been doing that since the very beginning on my channel. What I basically do is I take one particular franchise, whether that be Streets of Rage or other ones that I've done. I've done Golden Axe, I've done Croc, I've done about 70 odd now with F-Zero, Mario Kart, and Pac-Man, which is one that we're going to be talking about today. But yeah, I take one particular franchise and I try and find out the history and the making of everything you need to do in a documentary form fashion about that one particular franchise. If there's not many games, that can be a 10-minute video. But in the case of Pac-Man, you're looking at about 3 hours. I think the end result's going to be on that because there are a lot of Pac-Man games to the point where, whilst making it, 2 new ones I think have arrived. Yeah, it's never ever stopping. So yeah, we got Pac-Man, and the other side of my channel is exposing scammers on crowdfunding websites, whether that be Kickstarter, GoFundMe, Indiegogo, that sort of thing. My passion lies with gaming, and thankfully, sometimes those lines cross as well.
Why did you decide to do Pac-Man now? Was it just because it would be such an undertaking that you wanted to put it off till you had adequate time, or were you waiting for something?
Pretty much. I mean, I teased the video. I don't even know how long ago now. Maybe 2018 or 19, probably 18. And basically, I did the first ever arcade games by the company Namco. Namco made Pac-Man. And the first games that they ever pumped out themselves were created by the creator who made Pac-Man, Toru Iwatani. And at the end of that, I teased, this is all just a lead up to Pac-Man. And then I just left it. It was so scary starting that script because, like I say, it's such a huge undertaking. And unlike other franchises that, for the most part, they stay with one particular developer, Pac-Man jumps around so much, and there are so many interesting stories that, as you'll see, I've released part 1 as of this point. It's over an hour long, and we only cover the original arcade releases before he starts moving over to consoles outside of ports. Just in that one section, we've got stories of homeless people creating some of the most successful game ever for the Atari 2600, which was Pac-Man. We talked about obviously the origins of Pac-Man, people hacking the game and ended up getting jobs, which ended up being in Miss Pac-Man. There's so many incredible stories to those particular games that the video got out of control, and it just worried me about starting it, if I'm honest, because it's just such an undertaking.
The resources had to be a little hard to come by for the very early days of Pac-Man's development. What resources did you use to get that information?
Well, thankfully, I've been doing this long enough now to have a few valued resources now where I go to. The British magazine called Retro Gamer. For people that are watching, I've got a lot of Retro Gamer magazines on the top of my shelf. They're quite good. What they'll tend to do is do brilliant features, most of the time based on one particular series of games, or just one game in particular. They covered a lot of the bases. I actually reached out to a couple of people that worked on previous games. So we had someone that worked on the PacMan VR unreleased game. That's actually coming up in part 2. I was able to speak to them personally. There's a lot of hardcore dedicated PacMan bloggers out there that were able to fill in quite a few gaps, especially within the 3D realm of games as well. But because Pac-Man's so popular, the original story has been told so many times, it's my job to try and fill in the gaps and try and get a little bit more information where I can to make it a story that you haven't heard 1,000 times before. I suppose the easy answer is everywhere. It's taken a long time to write this script.
I saw one of the things you do tackle is the kind of urban legend of how PacMans Shape came into being.
Yeah, sure.
And how did you already know that it was kind of an iffy bit of information, or did you find that out as you were researching it?
It was definitely something I found out as I was researching. In fact, the way I ended the teaser video, the Namco's first video game, arcade game video, I actually ended it with looking down at a pizza, one slice coming out, and he looked down and saw Pac-Man. This was such a great way and such a beautiful way to market a game where primarily your entire goal in the game is to munch, 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 eat, eat, eat. So it is true, but it's such a small part of the overall story. Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve for me, as is every complete history.
How do you disseminate what, out of all this information that you're going to be gathering on PacMan, how do you disseminate what to leave in and what to take out? Were there some things that you had to cut just because it was starting to get over an hour?
It's always going to be the case. Always going to be the case. I kind of make it up as I go along. Like I said, I've been doing this for a very long time now. I think I always look back at my second ever complete history, which was the Golden Axe complete history. As happy as I am with that video, I do look back and there is maybe up to 20%, maybe 10-15% of random filler that has nothing to do with the game, really, that I just didn't need to add in there. Talking about the fact that the games were released on several compilations in the UK. And I think I spent about 10-15 minutes talking about that, where it's, let's be honest, really not important to the creation of that series. As an example with Pac-Man, I briefly talk about the fact that I own the original game twice on one system already, which is the Nintendo Switch, which is a system that's still going on. But, you know, I could continue on with every single version of the original Pac-Man that's been released on every single console. And that would take up 3 hours on its own, because there are so many ports of that classic game. So yeah, you got to work out when it stops becoming interesting. You got to keep moving, but keep it informative and interesting.
We kind of grew up around the same time, the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Was Pac-Man that big of a sensation in the UK like it was in the Americas?
Definitely not as much as America. When I look back at all of the research for this video, I saw a lot of promotional material heavily focused on America. Now, Pac-Man was definitely a thing, but for the UK, I mean, I don't really remember any heavy promotion on video games until the Mega Drive era. Maybe, you know, I grew up a little bit by then and it was more in my face, but there was definitely more money pushed behind those companies. With that said, I do remember some promotion towards the home computer market. So things like the Dizzy games. That was probably my first video game mascot love. I ever had this egg-shaped looking thing, huge in Europe. But in regards to the arcade games, they were, you would see them in pubs and things like this, but not normally really promoted too much. If I'm honest, I don't even remember the Pac-Man TV show being on TV. It probably was, but for us in the UK, growing up in the 80s, you had 4 channels unless you was very wealthy and had what we have, satellite Sky, which is cable, I suppose, back when you had to tune in your channels, and everyone had a different order in which their channels would be in. I mean, I was coming into the PlayStation era by the time we knew people that had that. So almost no one. Everyone knew what it was, but it wasn't really pushed on you at all. I mean, in America, I mean, you guys had theme parks, there was like sticker collections and all these sort of things, all the things that I recognized from my youth, from when I looked at like the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. That's what we had at Hero Turtles. And like I say, a couple of computer gaming things like Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff, but never normally the arcade Galaxians, Pac-Mans. Not really, not that I remember.
Do you remember the first time that you played the original Pac-Man arcade game?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I don't even know what really to call it. It was sort of a pub that you would take your family. It was a very big thing in the UK. If you've ever watched but it would be like you'd go at night and you know there'd be a terrible band on. I'm really trying to paint a picture of what it's like here. Everyone knew everyone. It was there'd normally be a guy outside selling seafood, like shellfish sort of seafood. So I'd buy, you know, get some crab sticks. I'd normally get a couple of 10p's off mum, and I played Pac-Man on a I don't even think it was an official arcade machine, if I'm honest, like a flat tabletop sort of arcade machine. There was Pac-Man in there, or it may have even been a knockoff Pac-Man for all I know. Pac-Man, there was some there was a Space Invader knockoff. It definitely wasn't Space Invaders, and a couple of other games. That was my first time. I reckon I would have been, I'm trying to think where I lived at the time, 5 or 6. In fact, I think the very first experience for me of Pac-Man was actually Pac-Mania, a pretty average port of Pac-Mania for the Amstrad CPC.
I think the first time I played it was at a laundromat in the podunk town that I grew up in and now live in anyway. But
yeah,
it was just a beat up arcade machine, just because we were too poor to have a washing machine. So spending an hour in there, just with my mother just giving me the thing of quarters, just like, just go away, just get away from me and just play a game.
Yeah, I know there was like seaside towns and you would go there and see them. But by the time I remember actually going to check out the seaside towns, like from where I live in Kent in the UK, we had things like Hastings quite close to us and stuff like that. A couple of like caravan-y maybe holidays that I went on, but there were a couple of arcades around. But by that point, they'd moved on from the real classic Galaxians and your Pac-Mans and stuff like that. So even though I saw a couple of knockoff ones, my eyes were normally very much more focused towards the snazzy shmup graphics or whatever else was going on over this side, or Outrun or something, you know.
Which of you do you have a favorite port of the original Pac-Man, whether it's like the Genesis one or the 2 or 3 that are on the NES?
Yeah, Ms. Pac-Man for the Mega Drive or Genesis is a fantastic port of Ms. Pac-Man. The original has still just got to be the original. I love the fact if you've got a flip grip, which is a way to turn your Nintendo Switch vertically, yeah. Or like a portrait mode, you can actually play the original Pac-Man like that, and it feels really nice in your hand. That's probably my favorite way to play, even maybe over the arcades. But as a port to a console, it's hard. I mean, by the time you get to the PlayStation-y, maybe PlayStation 2 era, they're all pretty much the same. So for the original, maybe the Switch, but as a slightly different game, Ms. Pac-Man for the Mega Drive was really good. With its 2-player mode, it's fantastic.
When you get into part 2, Pac-Man took a big jump, like in the PlayStation 2 era, of having the 3D worlds and everything. Will you be getting into that and like the later home consoles, like the plug and play that I see behind you? Will you be getting into all those ones that were I think they were made by Jack's Pacific or something.
Right.
Will you be getting into those, just that deluge of Pac-Man stuff that hit
yeah, so basically the first video is, and this technically, I not normally split my videos in half. I've only ever done it once before this, and that was for Castlevania, another enormous video, but it's going to work the same way. The first video is very much its history. There's so much to talk about, and you can't really cover too many games because there's just so much history from back in the day. When it gets to the point where there's a lot of the same style of game, it's just video after game after game after game after game. So I mean, even though the second one is maybe slightly longer, a little bit over an hour, close to an hour and a half, I throw in about 4 or 5 times the amount of games in that time. So yes, the PlayStation, original PlayStation Pac-Man World games, the 3D PC games that were created. There was quite a few of those. Not many people look at those, but there was one. There was actually a really funny game called Pac-Man Pizza Parlor, which very few people know about, and I annoyingly got quite addicted to. It could have been more of a mobile game if it tried. It's one of those time management games where you have to now throw. It's like the game Overcooked, but with Pac-Man inserted into it. So yeah, I mean, it goes into overdrive for part 2, and it's why it's taking so long, because there was just so much gameplay footage that needs to get put in there.
How did you get all the gameplay footage? It couldn't have all just been you playing every single game.
I always put sources underneath the video, and I actually, because there's so many sources, I actually put it into a separate document, so you can actually go down into the video and see the music used, which a lot of it is actually remixed by myself, or if they're other artists, I'll actually link them to their channels, so you'll be able to see where they come from, and obviously the same with the video sources.
Let's talk a little bit about the production of your videos, because I know you spend a lot of time in Vegas putting these together.
Yes.
How long did it take for you to actually edit everything together for that first video?
Oh my God, it's such a long time. I really admire YouTube channels, people like Lazy Game Reviews and stuff like that. And whenever they do like an updated video, which is quite rare, but I always make sure to watch those videos, because you definitely get really good inspiration from them. He always says he pushes himself, even to this day, to try and do something new on the next big video that he does. Pac-Man was obviously going to be the next one I did, and I discovered a few new techniques to add with this video, and it's really slowed down production, but I think the end result is just so much better. I mean, I can't even put a number on it. I mean, if I was just going to put 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, over 3 weeks for part 1, easy. Let's say close to a month, maybe. I don't know. It's such a long time, but up to a month. That's why I have the Kickstarter series as well, because the Kickstarter series is my fun junk food content. It's very easy to consume. We all watch it, and we probably should be doing something a little bit better with our time. But it's fun content to make, and it's easier content to make on the editing side of things. So okay, I'm not going to get this Pac-Man video finished this weekend. Let's stop, give myself a breather, work on something else, and then we'll carry on back to Pac-Man. And that's basically how I did that. Because of that, it took a couple of months to get it finished. But if I was going to put all the hours together, I say I don't know. 3 weeks up. 3 weeks up.
For people that are trying to get into video editing, especially with Vegas, it's a little easier to work with than Premiere is. What techniques and tutorials should people look into? What do you use to kind of streamline your process?
So I have a few plugins. These are the things I've actually discovered more recently, to the point where instead of, I do a lot of things where I move images in from the left, the right, or the top and the bottom. All up until last year, so for the first 5 years of my channel, I would manually click where it starts and click where it ends and physically move every single image. And when you watch a video, it's an hour long, and I've got several, probably 100 images and clips and stuff moving in. I manually did every single one of those. I paid a small amount of money to get a plugin that now the fading does that for me. It's significantly sped up my time. You definitely just learn as you go along. I remember one of the big breakthrough moments for me was working out how to move images and do it smoothly. And that was as simple as right-clicking the action and changing it from linear to smooth. That was, whoa, you can move things smoothly. It blew my mind. I would say always try and make sure your pictures are definitely as high quality as possible. There are really good GitHub programs that you can use to boost up your imagery. It makes such a difference. It changes your content from looking like, without taking away from anyone else, but like very
looking like my
online
content.
no, of course not. Very obvious. That's come off of YouTube. You want to try and make it as best as you can. I try and make my content as the very best I can. Is if it was on TV, it wouldn't look out of place. That's what I aim for, and just doing little things like that just to try and spruce it up that little bit more. It's so important. I mean, other things, get yourself a decent microphone. It makes such a difference. you can hear when you're talking through the mic on a camera. It's a one-time investment. My one's just broken, but it lasted me 6 years, and it was worth every penny. I spent like £100 on a Blue Yeti. Get yourself good audio as well. I mean, I could go on and on. In all honesty.
When will part 2 be coming out, or can you not tell us yet?
I said at the beginning of the week it would be done by the end of the week, and I haven't. I feel like I haven't got much further in it. If I'm going to be honest, I'm 20 minutes into a fully edited hour and maybe 20-minute video. Let's go for next weekend.
Okay.
I don't know. The second week of what would that be? Second week of April. We'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have some other things coming out as well.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
And a lot of that content that people could see early instead of waiting a while would be through your Patreon, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's because these guys, they allow me to put more effort into the videos. You can become a slave to YouTube, or you can work with people to actually people that like your content if it's good enough, which I hope mine is. I'd like to think mine is, to be able to just hold back and put out the content that's actually worthwhile rather than rushing it.
And to wrap this up, where can people go to see your Patreon, see your videos, see some other your stuff that's not strictly video game related?
Yeah. Go to the search engines, go there and type in Slopes Game Room. Slopes is in an incline or a decline of a mountain or a hill, you choose. Just go to Slopes Game Room. So you can do that, like you say, on Patreon. You can do that on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on all of those places. Discord as well. It's really good over in the Discord. We've got a growing group of people over there, which is really cool. We're actually doing live interviews now, roughly once a week, with different industry people. We got some really cool people coming up, including a guy called Seth, who worked on the original Disney games, so the Mega Drive. Very excited about that. Yeah, just go searching for Slopes Game Room, and I mean, there's 600-700 videos now. You've got a wealth of stuff to have a look at.